All right, so this, of course, is the big story that we are tracking on Dispatch today, where Brazil has held its elections on Sunday. Now there will be a runoff election on the 30th of October after voting concluded in the first round of the presidential polls. Now, according to the numbers that have come in, neither of the two candidates, the incumbent President Jair Bolsonaro nor the former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, have been able to get 50% of the votes that are needed for a candidate to be declared the winner in the first round of polling itself. Now, according to the Brazilian Election Commission, Lula has managed to get about 47.5% of the votes, while the incumbent President Jair Bolsonaro has managed to come in the second position with 43.7% of the votes. Now, the race was way tighter than what was earlier expected. Now, remember, opinion polls in the lead-up to the elections had suggested that there could be a clean sweep for the challenger Lula. They underestimated the voter base of Jair Bolsonaro. Now, Brazil's presidential election this year has been one of the most polarizing that the country has witnessed in recent decades.
I understand it was a vote for change for the people, but there are certain changes that could be worse. We tried to show this in the campaign, but that didn't reach to part of the population. We will analyze it.
E eu sempre achei que a gente ia ganhar essas eleições. E quero dizer para vocês que nós vamos ganhar essas eleições. É apenas uma... Isso para nós é apenas uma prorrogação.
Now, Bolsonaro is a far-right leader and the current president and has vowed to defend, in his words, God, country and family, and has retained the die-hard backing of his Bible, bullets and beef base. But there's also been a bit of a dip in his popularity as a result of his mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Public displeasure over a struggling economy and also the worst deforestation that the Amazon rainforest has witnessed in over 15 years. On the other hand, Lula is an ex-metal worker who's risen through the ranks to become one of the most popular presidents that Brazil has seen in its history. He's seeking to stage a return 4 years after spending 18 months in prison on controversial corruption charges. All right, now to give us more insights in terms of what this election, of course, means for Brazil, we're being joined by senior journalist Michael Fox, who's joining us live from Sao Paulo in Brazil. Now, Michael, thank you very much indeed for taking time out and speaking to us here on WION. Now, this election has thrown up a bit of a surprise. It's been a lot closer than what many people expected. Many thought that Lula da Silva, because of the events that have happened over the course of the last 2-3 years under Jair Bolsonaro, will have a clear edge. But in terms of the results, in the way the people in Brazil have voted, it appears that the election is much more neck and neck than what was earlier expected. Lula's got 47.5, but Jair Bolsonaro has got about 43% of the votes. What do you make of this? All right, we seem to have lost the line with Michael Fox there. We'll try get him back again. But this of course, is what has happened in the voting that took place in Brazil. This has been a bit of a surprise sort of a result in the first round of the elections. Now remember, in the event that neither candidate can secure 50% of all the votes that are cast, what that means is that the top two candidates will have a face-off in another election that will be held at the end of October, and that's precisely is what is now going to happen. And I'm told that Michael Fox is back with us. Michael, this has proven to be an election that has been a lot closer than what was earlier expected.
Absolutely, that's the case. And it's a bit of a shock for the entire country. Everybody's trying to figure out what that means. You know, the two main questions going into this were, is Lula going to take it in the first round, and is Bolsonaro going to abide by the results? And that just tossed those questions out of there, right? And in particular, it was a shock for Lula supporters out in front of where he was seeing the results last night. And that's where I was at this hotel in Sao Paulo as the results were coming in. At first, people very excited when he passed Bolsonaro, but then the realization set in that he was not going to get that much more than Bolsonaro was. And so people are still trying to figure out what that means.
And also this now actually complicates things, doesn't it? Because if we don't have a clear winner, we'll have a runoff election where these two candidates will go head-to-head. And now anything can happen. You know, Jair Bolsonaro, because of the strong base that has his backing, could actually upset Lula's campaign?
It's absolutely possible. Now, there's a couple things to keep in mind. It looks like the third-party candidates, there was one that got 3%. There was Ciro Gomez, who got 2.5%. Most of those votes most likely may go to Lula. Now, there's obviously a lot of negotiating in the back doors and things like that. But it's most likely then a certain percentage that is going to go to Lula. In fact, people were trying to convince Ciro Gomez in the lead up to the elections to just say, I'm going to bow out and then have, endorse Lula as a way to try and help him over the 50% mark. So it's very possible that's going to help. The other thing is you have to remember that Bolsonaro has a rejection rating in the country of over 50%. So over 50% of the population says they do not support him and would never vote for him. But of course, that doesn't include the percentage of the people that's voting is less than that, obviously. But so there's a lot of questions looking forward, and the campaigns is going to get really intense, I think.
Absolutely, indeed. The next few weeks are going to be very interesting in terms of what happens in Brazilian politics. Thank you very much indeed, Michael Fox, for joining us from Sao Paulo and getting us those updates. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.